The other thing I wanted to tell you was I came here from Mexico, where I was yesterday, and interrupted a trip there. I mean, a few days before I realized I would need to do that. But I'm talking about it because I came from a gathering of the Kepner-Krauss families. All of Jim's siblings were there, all of Elaine's children. There are many people here, some who, and many more who knew of Elaine Kepner, one of the fellow founders of the fellowship that became the Gestalt Institute of Cleveland. And Elaine died quite a few years ago, but her grandson, Braden Kepner-Krauss, is my godson, and he was getting married in Baja California. And as Braden had attended my wedding 20 years ago, as a number of people here did, and his father, Jim, officiated. And yesterday I officiated at his wedding. And it was so sweet, and the reason I'm telling you is just to bring that kind of fellowship history in, and to bring the greetings of the whole Kepner family. All three of the now, older siblings, those we're all seniors now, remember Elaine, remember Sonia and Edwin, and so there was a lot of talk about that at the wedding. And they, of all occasions to have to leave, they understood that I had to be here.
So my name is Steve Anderson. I was introduced to Sonia several years ago by Joe Melnick. Joe described, I was having marriage problems, and Joe said to me, "You need to go see Sonia." And he said, "You need to go see Sonia. She's the Michael Jordan of therapists." So I drove down from Maine, 4.5 hours to see Sonia. And my marriage didn't work out, but it needed to end, and Sonia helped that, and that was important. And then I was able to keep the relationship with Sonia and on to do organizational work with Joe and Sonia and GISC. And I'm just blessed and grateful that it's all very much a part of who I am today. While I was sitting over there wrestling with, should I say something, should not say something, do I have something that interesting, I heard this beautiful voice say, "You need to learn to hold things loosely." So here I am, and I'm holding things a little loosely.
My name is Carolyn Lukensmeyer, and I was profoundly aware when I arrived here today that the last time that I stood in this space was at Ed's memorial service. And I think one of the gifts that Ed and Sonia gave most of us, or all of us, that hasn't been acknowledged here today, was how to walk through the world as a couple in a way in which you have a truly unique relationship with each individual in that couple, and a true relationship with the couple as a couple. It's a pretty extraordinary gift. I met Ed and Sonia when I was a baby. I think I was 23 years old. And I'm deeply grateful that each of them recognized some qualities in myself that were talents and gifts that at that point in time I actually didn't know I had myself. And I have a funny story. Len Hirsch and I moved into the condominium that Ed and Sonia started, and any of you who are from the Cleveland days know that that condominium was rife with all of the social conflicts that people who live together who don't actually have relationships with each other have. And Sonia and Ed fashioned this strategy that the next best thing that could happen to the condominium was that I would be the president of the condominium board. They had high expectations. I think by then maybe I was 25. And these people who'd been in the condominium since it began, the Stashowers and they were pretty wicked. The bottom line is I failed miserably at being the president of the condominium. and was smart enough to get out of it very, very quickly. I don't know that I've ever thought of these words before, but I also know that in my heart of hearts, I knew what a disappointment that was to Ed and Sonia. They really did think I was going to solve that social system. And I don't ever remember any conversation with them, but what I do remember most at the moment is that even at that young age, it might have been the first time in my life that I actually could separate myself from disappointment in two people that I admired and loved, and actually understood that they had expectations of me that weren't real. And it really wasn't, in that regard, a failure of me in who they were. And I think, just a word about Sonia as a therapist and a human being. I grew up in the Middle West in a very, very religious family. And I actually, when I made a choice for a life mate, married for life. And at the point at which it was a beautiful marriage for a very, very long time. And the point at which it fell apart and wasn't a beautiful marriage anymore, and people outside of me could have seen much more quickly than I could that it had to end, as Steve just said. But literally, it is not too large a statement. And my guess is that this will resonate with many of you in your own therapy with Sonia. In the moment, in the presence of that experience, I really thought I was going to die of a broken heart. And it was working with Sonia. Her ability to be present, her ability to reframe things, and of course, very, very hard work on my part. That out of that experience, it was just another steps on life's journey to be more of who I am, that I never could have imagined when that first began. But in some ways, I think what's most important to me, both about my relationship with Sonia and with Ed, but today I'm going to focus on Sonia. The particular path that I took to bring what I learned from many teachers and for what Gestalt theory and philosophy is all about, the path that I took was to take that into the rough and tumble of politics in the United States of America. And not many people who've walked that path do that. And I know that it meant a great deal both to Sonia and Ed, that it's a choice that I made, and I know they're extremely proud of how I have walked that path. And today, in thinking about coming here, two words just were deeply, deeply in me about Sonia. Truth and play. And her extraordinary ability to some way put those things together in the same moment, that people were able to take in more truth than they might otherwise have been able to do. So I'm hoping in the next couple of minutes to speak a couple of truths that I hope you can take in the way they are heartfelt meant from me, and that Sonia can be in the back of your brain and keep a sense of humor, play. I've actually had the thought. I had an extraordinary opportunity with Melanie and Amy and Marcy Crary, a dear friend, to see Sonia, I think about 15 months ago. And I was fortunate that day. She was very lucid. She recognized us. We had an amazing conversation. And as was Sonia's core, she asked me questions about the work I was doing that were amazing questions. I wish I had a tape of the conversation. But since that time, I have to also say that I actually think, and I mean this from my heart, that it's a blessing that Sonia is gone, and that she does not really have to, on a daily basis, look at what we have come to in this country. I think it is a blessing for her. Sonia always, and we saw it mostly in her writing, although she was a genius at the micro intimate exchanges, she never, ever thought without thinking of the larger context in which she was living, in which we are living. And if you think for a few moments of the roots of what has given all of us so much, Gestalt theory, Gestalt philosophy, Gestalt psychology, think where it was born, Think of the context in which it was born. Think of the trail that it followed from Germany to South Africa. And the bottom line is we are now alive in our own country in a time when the level of threat to basic democratic institutions is something we have not seen here in any of our lifetimes. It may have happened in this country before, but not in our lifetimes. And I also have to say, literally while Joe Melnick was talking, a phrase came to my mind, and then you read it in one of the emails, that I believe consciously I haven't thought of in probably, certainly 20, 25 years. And the concept was fixed Gestalt. Said from our theoretical perspective, we're living at a time in which the fixed Gestalts held by literally every single one of us as people, as well as our institutions, is in fact what is taking us down a road that we can only turn back from if all of us, and I do mean all of us, will take the time to deeply reflect what are my fixed gestalts about the people who voted for Trump? What are my fixed gestalts about the people who want to build a wall? You name it. Every one of us in this room are the elites. We are the elites. Most of us don't think of ourselves that way because we came from humble beginnings. We are the elites of which millions of Americans are railing out against at this moment in time. So here's my invitation, and I really think Sonia would love it that I'm doing this. I really do. Here's my invitation. Stop sometime now before you get home and think of a real person in your life, not a concept, not an abstraction, but a real person in your life who's very different than you are, maybe just because of their views, but who you are holding a fixed gestalt about. And I'd like to suggest, you probably want to talk with someone else about it beforehand, but I'd like to suggest you really think through in you what would be the risk and what would be the reward of you taking the first step to have an unlikely conversation with that human being. And the critical thing is to know that at that point in time, just like you've done a million times in a Gestalt practicum, the point is only to listen to understand, not to listen to rebut, not to listen to challenge, not to listen to get your own point of view out there immediately, but to walk away from that exchange, hopefully both ways, that you have a better understanding of how that person's life experience has taken them to believe what they believe, as your life experience has taken you to believe what you believe. I'm taking the time to say this because the chasms that now exist in American society are operating like a virus. They are in all of us. And no matter what changes we make at our larger political system, until literally millions of Americans have figured out how to walk across this chasm and reestablish a relationship with someone about who we have a judgmental fixed gestalt, we are part of the problem, not part of the solution.